Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. It's a great pleasure to be joined once again by the founder and chairman of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General, thank you so much for joining the briefing today.
My pleasure.
General, what can you share with us right now?
I think that, following the big win in Iran, the whole center of gravity has moved to Gaza, and everybody is asking what is going to happen, where all this is going. And there is a lot of misinformation, things when you listen on TV, radio, and so on are not very clear. So I'll try to explain how I understand the issues at the moment in Gaza. In Gaza, there are basically three scenarios. One that is not very likely is the scenario that says, due to this new reality that was created with Iran, we'll manage to get the Arab countries to really put pressure on Hamas to such an extent that will send a message to Hamas that it's game over. They need to lay down their weapons, get out of Gaza, and give us the hostages. And by doing that, the war will end. So there's a lot of discussions about what President Trump and Netanyahu are trying to do, and it gives a sense as if something big is going to happen and the war will finish fast. It's a scenario. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but at least as far as my assessment, I don't think this is the likely scenario. At the moment, Hamas seems really stubborn, and they don't want to give up, and they feel that maybe they can manage to stay. The other scenario is similar to what happened at the end of the war in the north, when Hezbollah fell, and following that, Syria fell, and then President Trump was elected and said there will be hell in Gaza. This situation brought Hamas to the point where they seeked a ceasefire. And for this ceasefire, they were willing to release hostages, something along Witkoff's plan. So we might see in the coming weeks a moment where Hamas, because of the Iranian defeat, because of pressure, because of internal pressure, will want to do a ceasefire. And this is maybe what President Trump is talking about when he's talking about maybe in a week there will be a ceasefire. So I don't know if it will happen in a week, but this is a more likely scenario, that the IDF is attacking fiercely in Gaza. It's moving towards achieving the goal of 75% control of the Gaza Strip. It's continuing to topple leadership of Hamas and to try and manage the humanitarian aid to minimize the aid that's going to Hamas. So all this, together with what happened in Iran, can bring us to the reality where we'll have a ceasefire and at least half of the hostages will be released. This is definitely something that can happen. But then the other scenario is that Hamas is not agreeing to a ceasefire. We already conquered 75%, and now we need to decide what's next. The army is already giving command to the Gazan society in the north to move south. Preparing to move into Gaza City, a place we didn't really operate meaningfully. I expect that the IDF will enhance dramatically the special operations to try to release hostages by special operations, whether it's hostages who are alive or not alive. So we might see more operations that really enable to bring more hostages, not through negotiation, and enhance the attack. The fourth option is something that I think is really not relevant, and this is basically a lot of what we hear in in the Israeli media, okay, we need to wrap this up. Let's get it over with. We did it in 12 days in Iran. So they're saying, okay, we'll get the hostages and the war will be over. What does it mean? Not clear, because this means we are not going to achieve the goal of war that says to eradicate Hamas, a governmental and military entity, and we're not going to create a reality that there won't be a terror organization and an army of terror in Gaza. I don't think this is something the government will agree to. I think it's crystal clear that we need to achieve all goals of war. So this scenario that is being discussed a lot in the media is not something that is really in consideration of the government. And the government wants to achieve all goals of war, to eradicate Hamas, to release the hostages, and to create a reality that there will be no terror army in the Gaza Strip in the long term. And all this discussion and scenarios about Gaza is getting mixed with a completely different issue, that is normalization. The potential of normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia, possibly with Syria, maybe other countries, Indonesia. There are many, many options, and Netanyahu and President Trump are continuously releasing declarations about potential peace agreements. And the big question is the success in Iran big enough to create a reality that there will be normalization agreements like that without ending the war in Gaza, without finishing the war and reaching goals of war? I would assume that it's more likely that all these entities, all these countries will say, we want to first see an end to the war in Gaza, but we don't know. Maybe the big win in Iran is enough for Saudi Arabia to move towards normalization, even while the IDF is attacking fiercely in Gaza. But again, if I have to bet on it, I would say they would rather wait 2-3 months and see the war in Gaza over, and not run and sign agreements now. But again, it's hard to say, because we don't know what they are being offered by the US and what are the incentives. So now the attention of the government is in two places. Center of gravity is in Gaza, and also a lot of attention to the possible signing of peace agreements, as we have discussed again and again throughout the war. We said this war is going to end with a decisive win on all fronts, and there will be peace agreements. Afterwards, what will be the pace, what will be before, we'll see. Probably in the coming weeks where this is going. I can say that when I met last week with the leadership of the army, talking to them, it was clear how much effort was given to the preparation to attack Iran. Really, the center of attention in the last 6 months of the leadership of the army was in Iran, not in Gaza. Yes, we were operating in Gaza, but the main focus was Iran. And now, maybe first time in this war, the army can really focus almost solely on Gaza, with all the capabilities of the Air Force, the intelligence, Shin Bet, ground forces, Navy, special operations, which require a lot of attention, and really bring all the creativity and the resolution and everything needed to really achieve the goals of war in Gaza. So this is where we are, and there is a continuous discussion between the government and the army how to achieve the goals, what's to be done. And as this is discussed, the army is attacking fiercely in Gaza, trying to mount the pressure and move towards realizing one of these scenarios which I mentioned before.
General, thank you so much for that overview. You know, the U.S. on an unprecedented level, partnered with Israel on that strike in Iran. And there are people who are now concerned that the way the Trump administration looks at the world, it's all about a deal. So Israel potentially now has to give something back to the U.S. Because the U.S. just did a great favor, so to speak, again, from a certain perspective, for Israel in the war against Iran. So is there a concern that that will translate into ending the war prematurely in Gaza, that President Trump wants a victory in order to say he's brought peace to the region, and Prime Minister Netanyahu will then have to, of your four options, have to really accelerate not conquering Gaza, but ending the war in Gaza?
Actually, think it's Israel who did a big favor to the West and to the US by launching this historical attack on Iran. It would never have happened. Nobody would have attacked Iran if Israel wouldn't have done it first. What we were able to do, set the terms for the US to step in and also participate in the attack. But I think that um, there is a clear understanding in the administration that Hamas needs to be eradicated. Hamas cannot stay. And this is not only an existential need for Israel, this is an existential need for the whole Middle East. Because Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood. If Hamas wins, if they stay, it's not only going to really create a reality where we'll have to fight again and again. It's not going to end, but it might destabilize also other countries because then it will give a very strong push to all the radical Sunni elements like ISIS, Al Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and in other places. Can be devastating for the Middle East. There is no scenario where Hamas can stay. And of course, we want to accelerate this, but there is no ending of the war without eradicating Hamas. To end the war, you need to win it. If you don't eradicate Hamas, you lose the war, you don't win it. The hostages are extremely important. We must bring them all back, but just bringing the hostages, this is not a victory in the war. It's part of the victory. It's one goal out of three. We need to reach all goals of war in order to be victorious and really, really secure Israel. We have a responsibility for the hostages, but we have also a responsibility for the whole nation, for the people who live in the surroundings of Gaza. And also, you know, if you have an organization that butchered 1,200 people, raped women, decapitated heads of children, burned people alive, this organization cannot exist. Any country that agrees to give up in front of a terror organization like that will be in a big, big trouble.
Now, when you take a look at the leadership of the IDF, are they on the same page as the government in terms of what needs to happen in Gaza, or is there a little bit of a give and take in terms of the plans?
I think that I know very well the chief of staff, and I had a chance to speak with them. He's definitely on the same page. They have, you know, discussions about the tactics, how to do things, how to overcome different challenges, but not the overall understanding that we need to reach the goals of war. This everybody understands. But the army needs to present different solutions and different plans, and then the cabinet needs to approve them and move forward. And everybody understands we don't have endless amount of time. We need to win the war in the coming 2-3 months. It depends, there will be a ceasefire or not. And I think the discussions are more on the tactical, operative level and not on the strategic level. On the strategic level, everybody understands that we need to win the war and we need to reach all goals of war.
In general, are you able to share with us a little bit what's happening on the broader regional level with the Saudis in Lebanon in terms of viewing Israel potentially through a new light with our successes with Iran, and how that could translate to progress fighting our enemies together?
So, Lebanon and Syria for decades have been dominated by Iran. Iran was the power that was really impacting what was going on in Lebanon and Syria. And now this Shia axis is falling, and the Syrians and the Lebanese are seeking a new alliance, and they have two choices: or move strongly towards an alliance with Turkey and the Muslim Brotherhood, or move towards the Western Israeli moderate Sunni alliance that will be led on the Sunni side by Saudi Arabia. And I think that the big success of Israel and the US in the fight against Iran, this definitely encourages these countries to move towards the moderate axis. And this just emphasizes again how crucial it is to defeat Hamas, because the defeat of Hamas will impact the whole radical Sunni axis. It will weaken it. And if we don't win, then this whole Turkish, Qatari, Al Qaeda, ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood axis will get very strong. So the key issue is to destroy Hamas. I think both Lebanon and Syria are considering joining the Abraham Accords. They need American assistance. They need economical assistance. For Turkey, it's harder to assist them because Turkey itself is not in a good shape. There is huge inflation in Turkey and instability, and Turkey is not the US. And Saudi Arabia will normalize relations. It's just the question of the timing. Is it going to happen immediately, or is it going to happen after the war in Gaza? This is the big question, and these are the kind of discussions that are being held, by President Trump and Netanyahu's team with all these countries.
And in your opinion, normalization with Syria, is that a good idea? They have a number of demands in order to normalize. Would that be in Israel's best interest?
I think we have to be very careful when it comes to Syria because it's not really a functioning state. Julani controls part of Syria, not all of it. And there are radical elements. Israel must insist on staying on the Hermon mountain at the highest point, and really think about how we prevent any scenario of radical forces getting close to the Israeli border. So with them, we need to be very, very careful and make sure our demands are very clear. And this is something that the Minister of Defense addressed this week in one of the interviews, really emphasizing the things I'm saying here now to make sure that we don't sign an agreement with an entity that turns out, to be a danger to Israel.
Thank you, General. Thank you to all of our faithful viewers and listeners who are submitting their questions. General, one question, if we can go back to Gaza for a moment. We've been at war for quite a long time. Who is leading Hamas in Gaza right now? What is their current leadership structure such that they're able to, this far into the war, continue to operate?
Yeah, so at the moment they are led by the brigade commander of the Gaza City, Azadin El-Haddad. He is one of the founders, a guy with a lot of experience. He's giving the commands. I'm not sure he's really managing to control everything everywhere, but he's the key figure at the moment. And I think that if we manage to get to him, I'm not sure if there are any more dominant figures that can really manage things in Gaza. So obviously he's a target. He tends to surround himself by hostages, which makes it more problematic to attack him. But he is at the moment the leading figure inside the Gaza Strip.
And what level of control or coordination is coming out of Qatar right now?
So, the Qataris are all the time involved in trying to impact what is going on. There is a lot of tension between Qatar and Egypt about who should lead, the talks. I myself think that the Egyptians are more relevant and they have more influence on what's going on with Hamas. But at the moment, both countries are part of the discussions trying to really push towards a hostage deal.
And what about I'm sorry, the leadership of Hamas that is abroad, that's in Qatar, for example?
Yeah, so we have been suggesting to the U.S. to extradite the leadership of Hamas. I think that if we really want to put serious pressure on Hamas, we need to arrest all these leaders. The U.S. needs to demand from Qatar and Egypt to send these terrorists to the U.S., to Guantanamo, and this is the best way instead of the Mossad spending years hunting them. Simply have these countries arrest them, and this can definitely help, bring back the hostages. I would expect, that if Hamas insists not releasing hostages, to arrest the leadership. That's the right move that should have been done already. Maybe we can still do it now.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. And thank you, of course, for your dedication, your leadership throughout this war. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We have a very powerful lineup of briefings this week, so don't miss them. We'll join you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.